Hello and welcome back to Dishelved with Adam White. Today I'm going to talk about The Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus, volumes 1 through 3. Volume 4 comes out next April as well. First, I want to talk a little bit about Peter David and what he did for me. Um, when I was first started reading, I read comic books, and I ordered from Sears, or my parents ordered from Sears catalog, a random box of like 30 comics. You used to be able to do that, and they just send you just whatever. And one of the issues that I got in there was the Incredible Hulk three. Let me see what are here. Yeah, 372, and it was the one where the Green Hulk comes back after a long absence, where he was the Gray Hulk. And I must have read that thing 300 times. I just loved it. I read it and read it and read it. And so I started seeking out more issues of the Hulk. And Peter David had written it for a long time. So I was in luck in finding some of the earlier issues, but mostly I followed it after that and all the issues it got. Well, I found out that Peter David wrote Star Trek novels. Well, I was really into Star Trek. So I read some of his Star Trek novels and really enjoyed them. They're really good. I highly recommend them. He's written quite a few. Um, he even created his own series called New Frontier, I believe it was, and it's excellent. Really, really good Star Trek novels. Then I found out that he wrote novels other than Star Trek, so I started reading those novels. They were excellent, and so basically he got me started. From that, I went on to other comic books and other novels, and I basically said that I owe my love of reading to Peter David. I posted all that on Twitter and just sort of threw it out there and linked him in it, and said that I appreciated his giving me a love of reading. And he actually tweeted back to me and said, "You're welcome." So that kind of made my week, made my year really. And he also wrote a couple of movies. The ones I want to mention are Trancers 4 and 5. If you haven't seen the Trancers movies, you really need to see the Trancers movies. Tim Thomerson at his best. Excellent movies. The best were 4 and 5 that Peter David wrote. He's even got a cameo in them. Anyway, on to the Incredible Hulk. This, as you can see, has a great cover. If I can ever get this backwards thing down, that I'm different from what I'm seeing and showing you. It's a Gray Hulk versus the Green Hulk. The first one chronicles the Gray Hulk. Peter David took this job for writing the Incredible Hulk because literally no one else wanted it. The Hulk wasn't creatively a big book at that time, and the people that were doing it were tired of doing it. And Peter David was a new writer. He'd written a few things, I think a couple of fill-ins on Spider-Man maybe, but he was a new writer, and uh, the editor was like, "Well, what do you think about the Hulk?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll take the Hulk." And so he took the Hulk and took it from a book that was kind of going nowhere and turned it into his magnum opus because no one else wanted it. And he just completely turned it around into a really, really good book. And in this, Banner becomes the green, or the Gray Hulk again. And in his very first issue of the Hulk, he was sort of a grayish color before they switched him to green, just for coloring reasons. And so they returned him to the Gray Hulk, who was smart, very devious, and he became him at night instead of when he got angry. And when this happened, he lost track of his wife Betty, so he was always on the search for her because you remember this was before cell phones and everybody knew where everybody was. This was back in the 80s. It was the Joe Fixit era. The Hulk went by the name Joe Fixit and worked for a mob boss. And as you can imagine, he was a very, very effective Mr. Fix-It. Anytime this mob boss had a problem, he'd send the Hulk after him, and he would take care of the problem in short order. He was in Vegas most of this time, but the key thing about him is he just wanted to be left alone. And Banner was kind of the same way, with the exception of wanting to find Betty, but the Hulk managed to kind of stay in charge of the relationship between him and Banner, and he just wanted to be left alone, to be the Hulk, and to not have anyone bother him, with the exception of just dealing with some of these problems for the mob boss that he worked for. That leads into the second book, which is what this is. This is volume 2. I just really like the cover on this one. It has that issue 372 in it, so it's highly, highly recommended. It's one of my favorite issues of all time. It features the return of the Green Hulk. I mean, obviously the cover, I'm not giving anything away by that. I'm just giving you kind of a brief overview of what happens, but the Green Hulk finally comes back, and it's very interesting in the way that it happens. And so then Banner is stuck being two Hulks. The Gray Hulk at night, and the Green Hulk when he gets mad. And so he's really torn up now because he doesn't want to be the Hulk at all. And both the other Hulks want to be the supreme personality, and they each want to be left alone. So it creates a lot of tension between all the different Hulks. It has a search for Betty. He finds out that he thinks she would be better off without him because of his problems with the Hulk, and he wants to leave her alone, but then he changes his mind, and you see how that plays out. Peter David also ushered in a new era for the Hulk because he consolidated all the three personalities into one, and there was a new Hulk, and I'll not mention how that plays out, but it becomes the new standard for the comic to have one Hulk, one personality, and it's really interesting what he does with it. He introduces the Pantheon with characters like Achilles and Atalanta and Ajax from Greek myth, and you don't know whether they're the actual characters from Greek myth or if they just inspired them, or if they were inspired by them. It really takes an interesting turn when the Hulk encounters the Pantheon, and it's a really good story that plays out over a lot of issues. He gives it a modern spin. The volume 3 continues with the Pantheon and the ramifications of the Pantheon, because all is not well, because things aren't usually all well when it comes to the Hulk, and he always ends up having to come out of it usually smashing something. So it's always good when the Hulk smashes something, and the Hulk and Banner are working to become acclimating themselves to their unified life. Volume 4 of this comes out in, I believe, April of next year. So that's lots of Hulk reading, lots of issues collected in this. I don't know if there's probably about 25 or 30 issues collected in each one of these. It's the best Hulk run ever. Peter David is the best Hulk writer ever. No one will beat it. He's an incredible writer. All his comics and novels are top notch. He still writes a lot of novels. You can get them for really reasonable prices on Kindle. I mean, like $2.99 or $3.99. You can get a lot of his books. He self-publishes a lot of books right now, and they're a lot of them are plays on other stories that kind of turn them around on their head. And he does one about that's kind of like Oliver Twist, and he does some about magical beings and just vampire hunters and everything you can think of. And he's a really good writer. I'd recommend anything that he writes. If you see Peter David's name on it, you can guarantee it's going to be good. Um, he also, I mentioned, he wrote Trancers 4 and 5. If you haven't seen the Trancers movies, gotta see those. Really good. He's still writing novels and comics at a strong pace. He also had the help on these. I can't get through without mentioning the artists. Um, he began with Todd McFarlane, who you may have heard of if you're a comic person. He was a very big deal. This is what started him off on his path to being very popular. Um, I've never been the hugest Todd McFarlane fan, but he did some pretty good work on the Hulk. There was another artist named Jeff Purvis, I'm not sure, who worked after McFarlane, and he kind of tried to capture McFarlane's work to keep it, on a similar look, but there was mixed success with that. In this volume, now Sam Keith had a fill-in issue or two, and his was great. Uh, there was brief. He had one with Mr. Hyde, which of course is a Jekyll and Hyde of what the Hulk is too, and that was a really really interesting psychological issue. Uh, in volume 2, he starts on with Dale Keown, who is an awesome Hulk artist. I mean, he is fantastic. Highly recommend his run with him. He did the one, he did 372, and he did a lot of issues after that, and was an incredible Hulk artist. And after that was Gary Frank, came on to do some too, and he was just another fantastic Hulk artist. Two of the best Hulk artists of all time. Really good, really played well with Peter David as the writer. Uh, they had a, I would assume had a great time doing it, because I sure had a great time reading it. And his story, Peter David's stories are smart and exciting, and you really owe it to yourself to check out his work. Like I said, right now there's 3 volumes of this omnibus edition, big, huge editions. Very good. Highly recommend them. I've got a lot of the issues that were in them. I didn't have a lot of issues that were in volume 1, because that was before my time of reading comics, so I had trouble finding back issues, and because I live in a place where you don't find a whole lot of that stuff. And I do have a lot of issues in this one and in the next couple, but I still went ahead and got the collections because it makes it easy to find and easy to read, instead of digging out one of my old long boxes that has all my Hulks in it. Uh, they were worth buying again because they were so good. Uh, anyway, I hope you'll check these out. Even if you've never read comics, like I said, this is what got me into comics and reading in general, and I think you'll really enjoy them if you give them a chance. Thanks for coming back to watch me, and hope you all have a good week.